right, this week's team sales call, it's me and Desiree. So let me stop the share. And it's really just Desiree. It's not me and Desiree. I'm going to ask Desiree questions and she's going to answer them. So Desiree, are you on with us?
I am here. Oh my gosh, what a great you guys have a lot of good stuff coming on. I'm gonna have to hop on that recruiting blitz, and then I heard about ladies night. I'm gonna have to mark that in my calendar. I definitely want to join and hop in too.
So Des, you remember that lock-in that we were at in LA, and I had you pull out your cell phone.
You sure did, yes.
Yeah. That's what I do on Thursday. I just do it virtually instead of like we did in person there. So
Yes,
um,
definitely something I need to brush up on because most of my recruiting right now is just through social media. But I honestly, I don't even think I tapped all my contact list, so I'll have to hop on and join you guys.
you definitely have it. And if you haven't tapped your contact list yet, your social media isn't nearly as effective. Because what if you actually talk to the people or at least raise their attention to it? Then they'll actually pay attention to the stuff you post. So
Right.
it's like a double threat. It's incredible to do it that way. So for those that don't know, guys, this is Desiree Blas. She is an incredible leader. What's your agency, Desiree? What's the
We're called
agency?
Paradigm. Yeah, we're called Paradigm Financial.
Paradigm Financial?
Yes.
Okay. So Desiree's done an incredible job building a team. She's if she hasn't hit it, she's on track to hit it with the production that she's doing now with Personal Hall of Fame production. She's easy to work with. She's down to earth. She asks a ton of questions. She implements on the questions that she asks when she gets information. She's really been a breath of fresh air the whole time that I've known her in the business. So we're really grateful to have her on. And I feel like regardless of wherever you are in the business today, we can all take a lot away from what Desiree does, how she does it, and implement those things to our business. So Desiree, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate you getting on.
Thank you so much, Trey. And I guess just a little background about me. Before I got into Family First Life or even selling insurance, I was in real estate. And then prior to that, I was on track to becoming a registered nurse, and I dropped out of school. And then I got into sales. I love sales because, as you all know, which we're all here, commission-based sales is the highest paid occupation in America because there's no cap to your income. So if you know you could work really, really hard and you could develop a skill set, you kind of have unlimited income potential. And then specifically in financial services, it creates the most millionaires in America. So we are in a very, very good spot, and our training's free, and we can only be trained by people who are like producing or recruiting or, building an agency at a high level. So again, we're in the best industry possible. But I got into life insurance sales because, as we know with real estate, that's market dependent. So I got my real estate license in like 2019, right before the pandemic. And I was a brand new real estate agent, and you don't really have leads. I mean, if you do, it's not the same caliber as life insurance leads. So what I had to do my first 7 months in real estate, I cold door knocked. I went and made flyers. I went to open houses. I would put up the flyers in coffee shops until the manager would chase me out or rip up my flyer. And I was just doing everything possible to get my real estate name out there. And then you had to build a pipeline very, very organically. So it did take me 7 months to sell my first home, a very, very long 7 months. And then after that, I was doing fairly well. There was at one point I sold like 5 to 6 homes in 1 month and maybe made 50 grand, but that was like all the money I made was right there. And then I didn't sell anything after that. So that's kind of what led me to insurance, because I was like, I like real estate. I really love it, but it just was like market dependent. If it was a seller's market and I had buyer, it was just, there was too many moving factors. And then so what caught my attention was I saw a social media post. It wasn't even a post, it was a story. Someone posted that I went to high school with on their story. It was a repost of something about Family First Life. And I was in a very, very tough time. And all I did was click on it. And I said, hey, what's this? That was it. But had I have been doing really, really well in real estate, I probably wouldn't have reached out. But again, everyone is watching on your social media, right? Because if you're consistently posting, that builds credibility. And again, it's all about timing with the people that you are recruiting. So I do think social media is huge, just because when I got in, that was how I was reached, right? And it took a little bit. I would see stuff and I was like, yeah, whatever. I love real estate. And then I was just not making money. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of my parents' house. And then I slid up, and that's how I found Family First Life. But prior to that, I've always been in love with sales just because it's predicated on your work ethic. But that was just a little background of like kind of where I came from and then how I got into the life insurance industry. And it did take me a little bit of time to take this super seriously because I just couldn't let go of real estate because I really liked it. And then what really led me to kind of diving further into life insurance was I went to my first in-person event. And if I saw any of you guys at the Ignite conference in Florida, put like a FL in the chat, but I met a lot of people there. But prior to that, yeah, I know we were on stage, saw a lot of people. I sat next to Jesse, sat next to Heather. It was really cool. But prior to that, I think I got licensed at the end of the year and I was very halfway in, halfway out. And the person that brought me on was like, yo, you got to come to this convention. And at the time that convention was in Miami, I'm in Washington State. So that's like all the way across the country. That was like a $800 plane ticket and like 6-hour flight. And I was like, no, dude, I'm not going to go to this. What is this convention thing? Like, I wasn't really like with it, right? I didn't really see where insurance was going for me. And he was like, dude, you have to go. If you're going to take your business seriously, you got to get over there and just check it out. And thank goodness I did, because I don't think if I didn't go to my first in-person event, I probably would have quit. Like, I don't know. I probably just didn't see the potential. But when you get to an in-person event, you get to see real life people on stage, ordinary people just sharing all their success and results for you to practically take away and then bring it back and implement to double or triple your income. So that was like, again, that was a little bit of a tangent, but that was kind of like my journey into where I am right now.
I'm so glad you shared that. I mean, we could just end the call right now.
Yeah.
You
And
guys
that's
need to
it.
register for conference. But no, that's so true. And I, you know, I kind of forgot the fact that it took you a long time to let go of real estate.
Mhm.
Um, you know what's fascinating about this, Desiree, is the names change, the way we reach the people change, the method we use to sell changes, the leads change, but the story is always the same. I think every single one of us that has been here a while can relate to what you said because our stories are very similar. This really comes down for folks to just timing. And you cannot say the wrong thing to the right person. There's lots of people like Desiree that are like, I don't know if interest rates are ever going to come down. Nobody's buying houses. Like, you know, they're worried about all these different things that are looking for a way to make more money. And so, yeah, that's phenomenal. And
Yeah.
the power of posting every single day, because if they see it over and over, they're more apt to actually ask you about it. So
People are watching Trey. It's kind of crazy, but like when I post a story, normally I only look at who hearts it or favorites it or reacts to it. But I don't scroll down and see whoever has looked at it. But then I'll go to like an event or I'll go to the gym and people are like, wow, I see that you're posting this, this, and this. And I was like, I didn't even know you followed me. People are freaking watching. So I would say, again, just commit to posting every day. It doesn't matter, work, lifestyle, something, because people are going to see what you're doing consistently. And then that breeds credibility. And then also I have a very quick story to tell you about just people looking for opportunities. So I still have my real estate license. I don't practice it that much unless I have a family friend that's like begging me to do something or sell their house or whatever. So I actually am in the process of selling a house. And part of like when you sell a house, you have to like order a signpost. If you ever seen a for sale sign. And I was at the property and these two young kids are digging this hole in the front yard. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ask these two kids to hang up my sign. It's kind of like, I'm short. So I'm like, I'll just ask them to hang it up. So I go up there and I just start talking to them. I'm like, hey, like, how old are you guys? They look young. Oh yeah, we're 18. We're 18. Cool. I was like, do you do this full time? They're like, yeah, I mean, just for right now, are you guys going to college? And you're just asking them, hey, you're 18. What is your path right now? Because normally when you're 18, you have no idea what you want to do. I know when I was 18, I had no clue what I wanted to do. And so one of them was like, oh, my grandpa owns this company. So I guess he just helps out on the side. And then the other guy was like, oh, I'm actually getting my real estate license. And I was like, oh, cool. I mean, obviously I have my real estate license, but that's kind of a longer process. I'd mainly do insurance. And then he started asking me about insurance. Lo and behold, I recruited him just because I went out there and I talked to him. But typically
amen.
you just talk to people, you say, hey, what are you doing? What do you do for work? That is like the most casual conversation you could have. And you could just talk a little bit about what you do. But especially like with young people, they have no clue what they want to do. Or I mean, real estate's not that great, guys. I mean, I have my license. I love it. It's cool, but it takes a long time to get paid. And there's like so many different hands in the pot. Like with the transaction, you have me as the agent representing the seller, the buyer's agent, the finance, like the lender, the title company, and something could happen on the 28th day right before you get paid and you lose the deal. Here, it's so simple. You could get paid the next day and it's just you and the insurance company and the client for the most part. Right. And so that was
Right.
a quick little story I wanted to say. I just talked to these guys maybe a couple days ago and like, added them on Instagram. And now they see another thing too, is I don't really ask for people's numbers. I just get their Instagram because they see what I'm posting on my story and all my posts. And that normally, if they don't want to know right then and there, they'll reach out eventually with the timing part.
That's smooth. That's really good.
Yeah.
So for those that are new, kind of walk us through your sales journey, because obviously the biggest override you make in the business is on yourself.
Mhm.
What did that look like for you? Like when you started out, did you just kill it out of the gate and everybody you called just bought a policy from you? Did you ever do in-home or was it all on the phone? Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Oh man, I was part-time when I came in because I was still doing real estate, but I was all in-home. Final expense in-home. Honestly, I didn't even have that much money for leads. So my process was prior to that, and I think this is important too when I do talk to new people, if they don't have enough money for leads, because leads is the lifeline of this business, you need to tap into your warm market like ASAP. So right when I got into life insurance, I had no clue how important life insurance was. I have been to funerals, but death is expensive. When we broke down, like, hey, average cremation cost is what, 10 to 15 grand. And that's right now. Then there's inflation. So if someone dies 10, 15 years later, it's going to be a lot more expensive. Burials like 10 to 30,000, right? Sometimes 50,000. And I didn't have enough money for leads. So all I did was kind of audit my family because I didn't know anything about life insurance. Lo and behold, my parents didn't have life insurance. My dad and my mom, my dad was the primary income earner. And he was like, I have insurance through work. And we know how that conversation goes. And I was just like, okay, cool. If you leave work and then you suddenly pass away after you're retired, we don't have $30,000 to bury you, Dad. Like, you have to get a policy. And he didn't even want to get a policy, but I forced that guy to get a policy, got my mom a policy, got my grandma a policy. And I just did an audit of what that would look like. And I wasn't really thinking about the commission right away, Trey. I was really like, if mom and dad die, who's responsible? Cool. Me. Do I have that kind of money? No, I don't have $30,000 to bury somebody. Me and my siblings don't have that. So they had to get it. Then I looked at my grandma, who was in her 70s at the time. And I was like, cool, if grandma dies, what is that going to look like for the family? My parents don't have that kind of money. Then they're going to come to me. And so I was like, we're not doing GoFundMe's, got them insurance right away. And that was normally how I started. That's how I like jump started my business, was helping my warm market. And also, like, a few things are going to happen. One, you're going to get the practice to talk to your, to practice your presentation. Two, you're legitimately helping your loved ones. And then three, you're earning money to then dump back into your business. And so that's normally how I got started. But Trey, I was pretty horrible. I don't even remember. I think we didn't even have an office. We were meeting at people's like apartment living rooms. We were calling in laundry rooms, just calling, booking appointments. And at that time, I was a very emotional salesperson. Now, when I do like train people, I'm like, hey, this is all a numbers game. You need enough leads. You need enough activity. You need enough training. I was just kind of like throwing things to the wall, hoping it would stick. So I would call people, book 3 appointments for the next day, get 3 no-shows, and think that this didn't work. So that's how I started. And it wasn't until I think I just developed the skills naturally. It took me a few months, but it was like, okay, cool. I get hung up on this part. This is the objection. And then I just worked it backwards and then kind of went for there. But I was not great right away. I was just relentless in getting better and better. So again, that was just kind of like how I started. And I kind of learned through failing forward. No shows. Okay, I hated no shows, so I had to tie down the appointment, right? Got like a banking objection. So I'm going to practice saying the banking objection out loud. I'm going to say it out loud in the mirror. I'm going to talk to my family and just go through the script. And so I was very cognizant of like, where did I fall short? And then let me go back to the drawing board and let me practice. So that's kind of how I kind of self-corrected. And then I would attend every single training call that they had, YouTube University. That was how I like kind of taught myself in the beginning, because I was horrible.
Mm. What do you think the number one quality for somebody that succeeds
Ooh.
that they have in common? What do you think the number one quality is?
I would say being coachable. And there's a few. These are my top 3 favorite ones. I always say this whenever I'm talking to a new person, like, as long as you have a very hard work ethic, so like you're the hardest worker in the room, it doesn't matter how you feel, rain or shine, you're going to show up and you're going to work. Number 2 would have a positive attitude, right? Because we deal with so much rejection from clients and just in general, like a lot of crap goes on. So you have to maintain a positive attitude. And then number 3 is like being coachable and being teachable. If you have those 3, that is the recipe for success here. You do not need, again, a business bachelor's degree, or you don't need sales experience. If you come in here, clean slate with those 3 things, and you're willing to endure the crap that's going to happen with sales, then you are going to be, like I said, very, very great here. It does not matter, because it takes what, 10,000 hours to master a skill. That was that one study. And people get so hung up because they don't make sales in their first week, their second week, their third week, or in their first month. It's possible, but don't expect that. Don't expect to be great right when you start, because not anything worthwhile happens easy, right? So I would say, yeah, coachability, positive attitude, and then also a hard work ethic. That is the recipe for success here.
I love that. As far as buying leads, was that like a huge hurdle? Do you think that's a hurdle for most people?
Absolutely, I do. And it wasn't until someone gave me the analogy of like, right when you get your insurance license, you're 1099, you're an independent contractor, so you own your own business. So if we're looking at the analogy of being a business owner, if I wanted to go open up my own coffee shop, because I love coffee, before I sell my first cup of
I do
coffee,
too.
yeah, it's like 3 p.m. over here. I'm drinking another cup of coffee, right? But if I wanted to open up my own coffee shop, before I sell my first cup of coffee, I have to go lease a building, buy the coffee beans, buy the oat milk, buy the sugar, buy the cream, spend a lot of money, invest in my business before I even see a profit. And normally on average, if you Google this, it takes like what, 1 to 2 years for an actual business to be profitable. So when I looked at it as like, okay, this is an actual business. I'm a business owner. I need inventory. What's my inventory? Buying leads. That made more sense for me. And that's how I normally explain it to, you know, either recruits or brand new agents. Cause in the, like Trey, I don't really want to work with someone who doesn't want to be a business owner. Like if you don't have that
Right.
kind of mindset, then this is going to be very, very hard for you. But if you explain it like that, normally they have an understanding. Okay, cool. I'm going to have to invest in my business. And what's really cool about life insurance, it's a low barrier of entry. If you want to go open up a restaurant or any other kind of business, you have to go to the bank to get a business loan for 40 to 60 grand, right? At whatever interest rate it's going to be. Or if you want to go get like a normal career or whatever America's kind of like pushing you towards as far as college, you have to go to school for 4 to 6 to 8 years, be in 6 figures of debt, and then you're not even guaranteed a job. You might as well come here, very, very low barrier of entry, have $1,000 to $2,000 ready to invest in leads, and then freaking get after it. And then just like just get punched in the face. That's what Sean says a lot, right? Or what was your guys'
Right.
saying right when you guys started? It was like run fast, break shit. That was like my favorite thing. That's how
That's
I
right. Yeah.
learned. That's how I learned. Like I can't overanalyze. If I like dip my toe in the water, I won't jump in. Someone has to push me. And that was the only way that I could figure it out. Because if I, like I said, if I overanalyze, I just won't move. So for me, I knew that was my learning style. And that's what I tell people. I said, hey, if you're going to read a bunch of stuff, you're going to think you have to know all the product stuff, just follow this process and understand that this is a business. So it's going to take some time and you're going to have to develop that skill set. Right. And then I'll normally ask someone, I'll be like, Trey, did you play any sports or whatever? Or like, what are you good at? And I had somebody like play soccer or something or baseball and they were a college athlete. And I was like, how long did it take you to get really, really, really good at baseball? They're like, oh, well, I'm still learning. And I'm like, okay, that's the same thing here. Or someone's like, oh, it took me 3 years. Cool. It's going to probably take you a very, very long time to feel very confident in this. You'll still make money, but just don't give up at any friction point. So that's kind of what I say. But yes, just do the analogy of like being a business owner and understand, hey, a lot of business owners spend thousands of dollars just to sell their first thing and they're not even profitable. Here, your ROI is going to be crazy, but don't expect it to happen so fast. So just having, you know, expectations up front and treating it like an actual business.
I love that. And I totally agree. I mean, we're looking for people that want to run their own business. We're not looking for people that are looking for set it and forget it, though. Like there's a certain amount of sweat equity that no matter what your background is, you're gonna have to put in. And let's talk about that. So as far as like, because you do 100% phone sales now, right?
Yes.
And what kind of leads do you normally work? I know you sell off everything, but if you had
Mhm.
one lead type more than the other, what would that one be?
Yeah, primarily this entire year I've been doing aged mortgage, ARIA leads, the call-in ones. I mean, those are the like $5, $1, $3. Just buy a bunch of those and just just go to town, dial. At this point right now I have a dialer, but earlier throughout the year I didn't, and I was just hand dialing, aiming for $300 a day, or I was using Ringy. Now we have different CRM systems, but yeah, it was aged mortgage. And now I'm transitioning a little bit into IUL, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. But yeah, just all aged mortgage.
And are you selling them over the phone? Are you doing Zoom?
All
Combination of the
over the
two?
phone. Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom only if, I mean, now we're using Crankwheel and stuff, so we don't have to hop on Zoom, but only
Yeah.
if it's like for an IUL sale that's pretty big. Like, for example, this is what's crazy. I sold like 30,000 AP and IUL off a 75-cent mortgage lead. It was like a year-old mortgage lead turned into like my biggest IUL sale. Just because, and the thing is, here's the key thing. I wouldn't have known what to say if I didn't attend the Thursday SRS calls. Like, that's what's so crazy to me is like, I would just attend every training call, take notes, be present. Like I know some people that are driving and stuff, but like for me, I have to like take notes, rewatch the training, do whatever. And I was even bugging like Frank, asking for the previous trainings because like I like to go back and take notes and then like, you know, practice the presentation or throw it in my presentation. But I would have never like found that if I wasn't attending the free trainings that FFL is providing for us. So very, very valuable. Definitely lock that into your calendar and be present when you're taking notes and where you want to implement it into your training.
Yeah, I love that. So basically, you're working aged call-in mortgage leads, and you dialed them yourself. So what's like what what's your schedule like? What's the expectation? I mean,
Mhm.
you're basically how many hours a week are you on the phone? How many of those hours are you booking appointments? How many of those hours do you think you're actually talking to people about buying the insurance? Do you book appointments or you try to sell them on the spot? And then if they don't, you
Yeah.
book them? Like, what's
Yeah.
the process for all that?
Right. So I would say obviously always having enough leads. So like the three things, like and I know a lot of people train on it, is like you have to have enough leads, enough activity, and enough training. And if you have like a lot of activity and like you have a lot of activity and a lot of training, but you don't have enough leads, it's like that's going to be very, very hard. That's a lot of the sweat equity, but you should be replenishing and restocking your shelves every single week. And I like to use the analogy of like if you're a grocery store owner, you're not going to be selling the old groceries, the expired groceries. You got to restack fresh groceries every single week. But to answer your question, being very, very and explaining to new people what like your income producing activities are, and then having a metric to hit with those income producing activities. So when I was dialing for myself, I would just right when I would come in, I wouldn't check my emails. I wouldn't do any other stuff that weren't income producing activities. And I was just going for 300 dials, booking enough appointments for that evening or the next day. If the client's available to do it right then and there, we're going to close it over the phone. But if we're waiting for another spouse or they're at work, which if you're calling mortgage protection leads, it's like they're mostly working class. So you call them in the morning, they're at work, you end up booking it for that evening or the next day. Try not to book it out too far because your no-show rate's going to increase. And this is phone sales. So your appointment no-show rate is already high. It's like 60% no-show rate. So you want to overcompensate for that by booking more appointments. So like if I book 10 appointments, just expect 5 of them aren't even going to show up anyways, right? That's why we overbook to go over like those no-show rates. But that's typically what I'm doing. I'm doing my IPAs, my income producing activities first, not like, again, not checking emails, not doing things that aren't going to make me money. And then I'm booking as many appointments as possible, knowing I'm going to get no-shows. And then I'm looking at presentations as one step closer to a sale. So another thing too, if you guys are new here and let's say you almost had a sale, but you went through like 4 presentations, that is like one step closer to a sale. You're going to have to go through presentations before you have closes. Like if I have 4 presentations, I might close 2, right? You don't expect to close 4 out of 4, right? Because you're learning. So just a bunch of activity, right? 300 dials, 10 to 15 appointments. You want like 4 presentations, 4 to 6 presentations, and that should yield you 2 to 3 closes. But we're trying to one call close right away. And then obviously we'll have to book an appointment if spouse is not there or they're at work or they're driving, something like that.
Okay. So how many hours does it typically take to make 300 dials?
Ooh, like 6, maybe 5. It depends like how many appointments you're booking, how many people you're talking to. But I know Eric Schmidt's a pro at this, but I think it's like what, 5 hours if like no one's answering, you're not booking enough. So if you're legitimately working, and that's why it's key, Trey, to like I tell people track your activity because you're gonna think you're working, but you're really not. If you did not
Yeah.
do minimally 300, like you go get a job like at that point because then you don't have that time management skill. Like it took me a little bit to be disciplined with my time management. I thought I was working, I was doing this and that, but I wasn't really. And then I just kind of worked it backwards and I was like, I'm not even freaking dialing enough. I can't be mad that I'm not on the leaderboard when I'm not even working. Like, you know what I mean? So
Right.
just being very cognizant of tracking your activity because one of my favorite sayings is like, what isn't tracked, what is not tracked can't be measured. What isn't measured can't be improved. So how are you trying to improve something if you can't even like track what you're doing at that point? So like on a week to week basis, like see what you're saying. How many appointments did I book? How many no-shows did I get? How many leads did I buy? Okay, cool. That's great profitability. And then, increase it from there or see where you have to change. But it's very hard to fix something that you're not even aware of fixing.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So 300 dials, you're booking appointments for the same day or the next day, worst case scenario. You're expecting to get the no-shows. You're making sure the spouse is there as well. That's super important, right? Um, and then what is far like if you think about the one or two things that you had to change the most to go from not closing to closing, what are those?
Ooh, I would say like mindset. Um, in the beginning, I was probably very apologetic, but it's like doctor-patient mentality. And you taught me a lot about this is like, you're the professional, you're the doctor, they're the patient. Don't be like, hey, sorry to bother you, Trey. Does that work? So your tonality is going to have to change. And that in the beginning took me a little bit. So right from the start, you're sounding like a detective or a doctor or something. You're not like, hey Trey, this is Desiree. I'm like super excited to talk to you. Hey, are you? You know, like your tone has to be mastered. And maybe you guys aren't having that problem, but even when you start asking questions in like the inventory, for example, and somebody says, well, why do you need to know that? You have to give them like a reason why. Like, don't be like, oh, I'm so sorry for asking that. You're gonna be like, hey, this is part of the process. And sometimes like I'll be a jerk if they're a jerk to me, and I'll be like, Trey, so you're a plumber, right? That's what you do for your job. Yes, cool. Well, I'm not going to tell you what pipes to lay under like my sink and stuff, right? Let me just do my job. I got to ask you these questions and we're going to find out what, what company is going to work best for you. Is that fair? Cool. So like challenge them a little bit. But if you have that, that's like the number one thing is your mindset. As you're calling these people, you are the licensed professional. You don't have to know every single product. Just call them and, put the reps in and you'll kind of learn. And that's why we have Zoom. Like if you don't really know it, you don't have to know everything. Just put on Zoom, unmute. People are going to help you. Like that's the biggest, and you have a
Yeah,
big team here to help you.
amen to that. Yeah, I think that's it's when you said that, I thought about something, and now I can't remember what it was, but it totally tied in for a second there. Um, yeah, doctor-patient relationship, all that's super important. And mentality, and then I think the mentality too for calling is just the idea and understanding that like they're bothering you. You're not bothering them. You're just sitting at home minding your own business. They mailed the thing back or they called the number. Like, you like, would you just leave me alone already? Like, I'm just trying to help you. Like, you
Right.
keep bugging me and you're not answering. Like, why don't you answer when I call? Like, you're bothering me. I'm not bothering you. I'm just trying to get back to you.
Yeah.
That comes a lot with the posture, especially on the phone. What are some other things? Do you get a lot of objections like I want to think about it, not right now, those types of things?
Not
Or
as
no?
much. I do think when you are going through the sales process, like at every single step is kind of meant for you to see if the client's not serious or not. So for example, if you're doing the intro and you're calling them and then you end up booking the appointment, before I even solidify the appointment with you, Trey, I'm going to say, cool, just so we're on the same page, Trey, this is the type of coverage. Obviously, if you die, get cancer, it's going to continue to pay the mortgage for you. I'm assuming no underwriter has gone over this with you, right, Trey? Because
Right.
if I book an appointment, it's a loose appointment. They think we're talking about like PMI or homeowners insurance. It's right. Why would I waste that appointment slot? So every step you're kind of going through, I call it like the phases. So like I have like 9 phases in my script. I'll do like intro, right? And then like credibility, letting them know who I am. And then in the discovery, that's key. And when you paint the picture and you could talk to the client and they're engaging with you. But if a client's like very restrained, I'm like, okay, Trey, hey, I'm trying to help you out, man. Like if you did suddenly die, what is it going to look like for your family, with the mortgage? Are they going to need help? Are they going to have to sell it? Are they going to keep the home? And like I could tell from there. And if somebody's not serious, I'm just ditching the call. And then let's say they go through the discovery, then I explain the process to you. I'm going to say, hey, Trey, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm more on the medical side, blah, blah, blah. We're going to submit an application. Any questions with that? If someone's like, what? Submit an application? Cool, ditching the call if they're not serious. And then we move on to the next segment. We'll go through like the inventory. Again, with the inventory, if someone's not telling you how much they're making or they're not very forthtelling, I'm going to get off I'm going to challenge them a little bit. I say, hey, Trey, I could sense that there's a little bit of like confusion here. I just want to kind of know where you're at with this. This is pretty important for you. We just talked about it, obviously, in the discovery, tie it back to the discovery. And like, we are going to have to go through this process. So is there something that you want to go over before we move forward? And then, or I'll just get off the call if they're not serious. So normally checking in with the client through each of those steps. And you can tell when you're talking to somebody, if they're forthtelling, if they're not serious. And I normally just ditch the call if they're not. So that way I'm not wasting 50 minutes, if somebody's not serious, because you could tell when you talk to them. And if you're really unsure, like if you're on Zoom and you're hearing other people close, like top producers close, you can tell when, if they have the client on speaker, how the tone is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so you go through the financial inventory. What do you do after that?
After the inventory, then we do, and if you're brand new, you obviously do the inventory very thoroughly. That's where you ask the financial and health questions. Then if you're new, obviously you could put the client on hold really quick. You could ask people on Zoom, hey, I have a 59-year-old non-smoker, blah, 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 blah. They'll tell you what to write, whether it's equity protection or like full mortgage protection, right? And then after that, you go through the benefits and then you present the numbers. So obviously don't present the numbers first because life insurance is not a tangible sale. They can't smell it, drive it home and stuff like that. So you have to repaint the picture, have them write down the benefits. Hey, Trey, I want you to write down this is permanent coverage, so it's never going to expire on you. Number two, that this is portable. It's going to follow you wherever you go, whether you move, you die in another state, it's going to be following you, so it's portable. And you make sure they write everything down. You go over the benefits, then you go over the numbers. You give them 3 options. Don't give them more because confused people don't buy. You want to give them 3 options. Hey, 100% of the mortgage, 75% of the mortgage, or 50% of the mortgage. 100% of the mortgage is obviously going to pay off the full mortgage, and it gives, your family X amount of time or whatever they want to do. And so you re-explain what that is after you go over benefits. And then when you ask the closing question and you go straight into the e-app. From the e-app, there are 2 friction points, which we know, getting the social and then getting the banking. Right. And that's very common. Like some people beat themselves up. They're like, oh, I got a social objection, like blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let's just practice it because that's normal in sales. Those are the 2 areas where you're going to get hung up on where a client might give you some pushback. So just practice that. We know that already.
Amen.
Cool. Yeah. And then
All
after
right.
that, after getting into the e-app, you get the banking information, right? After that part of the e-app, then we're going to cement the sale. Because remember, it doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much you keep. So making sure the client knows you're their agent for life. Also telling them, hey, your policy packet's going to come in the next 7 to 10 business days. And then also, Trey, this is something that I started to do. I don't even know when I started to do it. But when I started phone sales, I wasn't doing this. So I'm going to tell everyone, do something like this. Now, if you go to the store, let's say you go to the mall, you buy a nice pair of shoes, you have a receipt, right? Every time you buy something, you have some sort of receipt. And when I would close over the phone, I wouldn't really send the client anything. Like they had my business card in their phone, but I didn't give them a synopsis of everything that we covered. So make sure you send some sort of receipt.
Hold on. Let me mute Mark. Hold on there.
Yeah, I
There we go.
muted him. There you go.
Thank you. You're fast.
I
Jeez, you're the fastest muting person. Okay, so some sort of receipt. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in cementing the sale, obviously after you get the banking and everything, because remember, and you could write this down, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, because we're in a advanced commission business. And if something happens in the first 9 months to 13 months, it's not going to look good for the carrier. So make sure you really have the client understand what they have and that you're their agent for life, that they're not just a transaction. So you're also building that relationship. So at the end of the sale, right, I'm going to send them some sort of summary. Normally I do a text message summary. I'll say, hey, Trey, before the end of my business day, before I leave the office here, I'm going to shoot you a text of everything we just covered, right? Because again, they just bought something. And when you buy something, you need a receipt, whether it's a text message or an email summary. So make sure you do that. And that has helped a lot. And then I normally like to give them a call maybe 2 weeks later to see if they got their policy packet. I also just started doing this. I schedule like some sort of 2-week call. And I call it like a policy delivery quiz. So then I'll call you in 2 weeks, Trey. We've already booked this after, after we close the sale. And I'll say, hey, Trey, it's Desiree. I'm going to quiz you on the coverage you have. And if you get it right, I'll send you a $25 Starbucks card or a $25 Amazon card. So I'll ask them, hey, what's the name of the company? Is your coverage permanent or term or whatever? And then how much coverage do you have? And then that's pretty much it. I might ask who their beneficiary is. If they get those right, or even if they get it wrong, I just send them like a quick little $25 gift card. I just started doing that.
I love that. That's smart. We used to always say when value exceeds price, people buy. And for years, I was like, what kind of cryptic code are these people speaking? What does that really mean? And finally, me and Andrew sat down and talked about it. And it was like, look, dude, if before you tell them the price, like if it's going to cost $70 a month, and in their mind, they think it's going to cost 30, they're not going to buy. If you tell them 70 and they thought it was going to cost 150, they'll buy it. So building enough value before you give the price is like probably the number one reason why people aren't making phone sales, because they let people push them into rushing through the process, so that when you say, hey, it's $25,000 and it's $106 a month, they're like, oh, that's too much. I saw on TV I could get it for $6 a month. But when you're breaking down the value and going through the bullet points and slowing down and having them write it down, I mean that's a game changer. And then
Right.
taking the time, like what you're doing with that policy delivery quiz, that's genius because it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. The business that stays is the business that pays. And so slow down to speed up, take care of the one you got, and that's great advice.
Yeah, you have all my favorite say. Normally I started keeping like little notes on my phones of like my favorite sayings, and then that way I could just pull it out of my pocket. Like the business that stays pays. I like that one too.
Yep. I basically speak in sound bites. Like if there's like an interview on the news where like the street reporter interviews a guy and he has to say something for like 10 seconds, like I'm the guy. Like, if it's like a 2 minute talk, like don't talk to
Yeah.
me because it'll turn into
Yeah.
30 minutes and then everybody's confused. But um
Oh, I did have one more thing just to kind of touch on the inventory. When you are, and a lot of you probably know this, but in the inventory, right, you found out how much you're making, like how much the client's making. So, Trey's a plumber, he makes $5,000 after taxes. I don't care about gross. I want to know, what are you bringing home, right? And then I'll ask him, obviously we know the mortgage amount's like 2,000. And then I'll ask him, hey, Trey, I know you're making $5,000. The mortgage is 2,000 after you pay all your bills, groceries, utilities. And sometimes you could break down and itemize them out. But in general, you just get some sort of synopsis of like what it is their expenses are from like how much they're making. And I'll say, perfect. So after everything, Trey, after the groceries, utilities, fun stuff, and I know you have kids and stuff and blah, blah, blah. What do you normally save every month? And he'll say, like I probably save about 500. Cool. On like most of the months, or is that like on the higher end? And I'm just trying to gauge how much is kind of left over. And if he says, let's say, no, yeah, 500 most of the time, I always put it in my savings account. Okay, cool. Well, when I'm showing him the three options, I'm not anywhere near $500, like not at all. So obviously whatever it is, 15% of the 500, whatever you got to do, just don't stay that close to the 500, because then it should be a no-brainer for them to pick something less than that. Right. So that was another key thing too. Being strategic with how much you're showing them as far as like the premiums for the three options.
and no brainer is defined as if you take your brain out of your head and it still makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another one liner right there. That's good. Um, all right. Well, thank you for that. That's actually great advice because really, so when I started, I had a ton of chargebacks when I started because I could make, specifically with mortgage protection and the cashback option, I could make that make so much sense for people. And I was overselling them. And so, Bob made $2,500 a month and I sold him $450 a month, but he gets all his money back in 25 years. And he's fired up because he's like, look at this savings I'm going to have. But then when I leave, he's like, dude, that's more than what I pay for my car. So he would cancel. So when I started, I had like 17 in a row, like big ones like that. And then I went the complete total opposite direction and wouldn't sell more than $20 a month to people, and that was stupid. Um, but what you're saying, finding the disposable income and not getting close to that number and making it make sense. And a lot of times, what I would do, and you're way better at selling than me, but a lot of times what I would do when I would get any kind of pushback, I would just say, hey, what's the no-brainer number that you would be comfortable with just to start out? And a lot of times people will tell you what they're willing to pay, um, especially with phone sales. So, well, this has been super valuable. Is there anything else on your mind that you wanted to share specifically with people? Think about the person that's trying to figure it out, that's beating their head against the wall, that were it not for this call, they would have quit today. Like,
Yeah.
like what do you have to say to those folks?
Um, I would say, I mean, there's a lot, but all I would say is no matter where you are, like for me, I knew nothing about the life insurance industry. All I knew is I just believed in myself. I was willing to just endure whatever I had to do. And in the beginning, I was a little bit emotional, but I think if you just set the parameters of like, hey, this is like, I don't really have a plan B. And like, I'm the type of person that will figure it out no matter what. And the thing is, we have like all these crazy freaking resources, the highest comp, the best training, free events, all this stuff. Like you're set up for success here, but it's really an internal thing within yourself. So
Right.
a lot of your potential you're not even tapped into because you have to go through all this crap to get there. That's why I tell people have a different relationship with rejection. Embrace rejection, because like successful people just get rejected more often than unsuccessful people. They just have a faster rebound period, right? They fall down, they get back up, they fall down, they get back up. And the faster you realize that that's just part of this industry or part of success in general, you will be, again, very successful. Just like, oh, this is part of it. Cool. I'm going to get back up. Cool. Another no show, whatever. I'm going to get back up. I'm going to learn. I'm going to like apply myself. I'm going to figure it out no matter what happens, whatever, no matter what comes my way, this is part of it. And I would say, as long as you believe in yourself and you're willing to grow that skill set and you're not here for immediate gratification, that you'll do great. And just embrace rejection and embrace that friction.
Well, I love that. And I would say to everybody as we close, I don't know the person that is consistently plugged in, done the activity, tried to get better, continually was a student of the business and focused on getting better and all the things that Desiree's talked about. I don't know that person that a year or a year and 6 months in isn't wildly successful at selling a lot of insurance. They don't exist. The people that don't make it are the people that, you know, they try it for a day or they try it for a week or they try it for a month and they give up. So I admire your persistency. I admire the fact that you're always available, you're always around, you're always plugged in, you're transparent. You don't hide from the problems that we have. You run headlong into those and share that with everybody. So I appreciate you for jumping on,
I
and
do
we'll
have,
have to
I'm
do
so sorry. I have one more thing I want to say. This is what also like blew my mind too. So really quick, like if we have like what, 60,000 thoughts a day. I forget whatever the neuroscience is. I watch a lot of like different podcasts, like 60,000 thoughts a day. And I've said this in other training calls, and most of those thoughts are the same. 90% of them are the same as yesterday. And then 80% are negative. We are wired to be negative people, negative thinking you're not going to make it, all this other stuff. So for me, when I understood that, I knew I had to get around people that were, that were successful, that could push me, that believed in me, because I needed that life like breathe into me, like, within myself. And so for me, I knew, cool, if I'm naturally negative and I'm by myself and I'm not plugging into a community, I'm not listening to podcasts, you're gonna like fail a lot faster that way. But just make sure you plug yourself into a good group, because again, if you're in your own head, I think Tony Robbins said this, if you're in your own head, you're dead. You need to get around other people who are going to breathe life into you, who are successful, who are where you want to be, because that is going to help you elevate yourself forward. So again, you want to combat against the negative thoughts, because it's normal. If you think you're a negative person, you're probably right. It's very normal, but what are we going to do about it? So I'm constantly listening to podcasts. I'm constantly working on my mindset, because like what everyone says, this is a 90% mindset business, 10% work, really.
Yep, amen to that. And if y'all are wondering where to plug in, part of the FFL Success Zone, the dialteam.fflall.com. Every day, people are on there making sales, unmuting, listening to new people dial, listening to old people dial, getting better. It's a sense of community, and it's a great place to do it. And honestly, if you're doing phone sales, I don't know how you would do it without it. So thanks for jumping on, Desiree. This has been awesome, and we'll have to do a round two. And congratulations on all your success. We'll talk to you again
Thank you
soon.
so
You guys
much.
have a great week.